So what we do, because you've been to the seminar, we offer a free consultation after the seminar to anyone who'd like to, to take advantage of that. And so we say, we'll meet with you one-on-one at the office, and please bring your documents with you. So any old wills, any estate planning documents that you have now, bring those with you. And oftentimes folks will bring what we call the I love you will. Okay, so that says, very, very common, the husband's will says, I leave everything to my wife. If she passes first, then it goes to the children. The wife's will says the same thing. I leave everything to my husband. If he passes first, goes to the kids. Okay? Sounds simple enough. What's wrong with that? Well, remember earlier when Ari was talking about Medicaid, remember he was talking about Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Okay? John was going into the nursing home. Agnes was at home in their residence. Well, Agnes in that case is the well spouse. Okay, John's in a nursing home, it's always assumed she would outlive him. But actually, guess what happens? Agnes has a heart attack, she passes first. Now they have an I love you will like this. Where does all the money go? Goes to John, right? Where's John? In the nursing home. So if he's already applied for a Medicaid or a veteran's benefit, that's going to kick him off because he's just received their joint assets. If he hasn't applied yet, he's not going to be able to, again, because he's received their joint assets. So that's problem number one. And then problem number two is the second part of this said, and then on down to the kids, right? Well, what happens when the kids inherit? There's one situation if the kids inherit cash. Obviously, we don't want them to blow it. We don't want them to take this big hunk of money and spend it all at once if it's cash. But even worse, what if it's an IRA? And again, unfortunately, we see this happen too. The kids are, gung-ho, yay, let's go in. I've inherited this IRA from mom or dad or from grandpa. Let's go in, cash it out, and what happens? They spend all the money. Well, what happens then when the next April 15 rolls around? What does the IRS say? That that money that you don't even have now anymore that you've spent, now you owe 30% of that money in taxes. So we need to be very careful to give IRAs special treatment. And give you another example here, again, a very common example that we see as to how plans fail. So we've got a husband and wife here. We'll use me as an example. My wife, her name is Kathy. Okay, so we got a will, and the will says everything to my spouse. Okay? But what happens, and again, we see this a lot, even folks that have done the planning and they've set up a will, this happens unfortunately all the time. Because what do you do when you get that will, you take it home, you're all proud of yourself, put it in a drawer somewhere, right? And it collects dust. If you're really well organized, some people take it to the bank, put it in a safety deposit box. What happens there? Same thing, it's basically forgotten about. And then, and as I say, we see this all the time, which is why I use this example. We go out after the will is drawn up over the next years and years, we open a joint account. So we got a joint account, Simon and Kathy. Okay, then I have an IRA. Who's the beneficiary of my IRA? Our eldest son. His name is Tristan. I've got a POD account. Anyone know what POD is? Payable on death, right? That's to our daughter. Her name is Katie. And then I've got a TOD, same thing, similar. Transfer on death, that's usually with a bank. And that's to our son, Sam. And then just for good measure, we went out, we opened up an ITF account. What's that? In trust for. In trust for, and this one, that's in trust for our son Jimmy. But again, remember, don't forget, my will says everything to Kathy, everything to my wife, okay? So now I'm deceased, now I'm no longer around, so let's see what happens. So where does the joint account go to? Goes to Kathy, right? The joint account goes to my spouse. Why? Because it's a joint account. What about the IRA? Who does that go to? That goes to Tristan, right? The POD, the payable on death account, that goes to Katie. The TOD account, the ITF account, that's going to go to Sam and to Jimmy. But wait a minute. My will said everything to go to Kathy. What happened? This is where all the money is here. You know, the joint account that went to Kathy, we might have $1,000. We might have nothing in that by the end of the month. You know, that's just the account that we use to pay the bills. Here's all the money, where all the money is. And is this a problem? Yeah, it is. In fact, this is such a problem that AARP did a study on this. And you know what they found? This may be shocking to you, but AARP found that people don't like to go see a lawyer. Can you imagine that? In fact, some people said they'd rather go to the dentist and have a teeth pulled. So because of that, they said, in this study they did, they said the average time between estate plan updates, so I see my attorney for a will, when do I see my attorney again? Average time? Take a guess. Very good. Most people say 5, 10 years. AARP said it's 19.5 years. And during that time, you know, we've messed up the plan, we've gone and set up all those accounts again. And they estimated, and remember, these are people that did the right thing. They thought they'd gone up, set a will, we're all set, we've got our will. But they estimated, because of these beneficiary designations here, they estimated about 90% of plans, 90, about 90% of plans fell because of this. So what we do, if you decide to work with us, we have what we call the Client and Family Care Plan. And basically what that means is, not only is it important to set up the right plan in the first place, we make sure that you keep it up to date. So if the changes in your family, we ask you to contact us. If there's changes in the law, etc., we'll stay in contact with you, make sure everything's up to date. And by the way, not to leave you hanging here, instead of this, what would we do? Well, what we can do is we can make all these different accounts, we can make them payable to what? Payable to a trust, right? And then if I pass away, Kathy's alive and healthy, living at home, who gets the money? Kathy does. But what if she's in a nursing home? What if she's in need of a government benefit? Then the trust is more flexible. The trust can say that we have money going to Tristan or Katie or Sam. We have money going to them for Kathy's benefit, but the money doesn't go directly to Kathy because that's going to mess her up later on. If she's in a nursing home, we don't want the money going directly to her. So trust gives us more flexibility there. Okay, so because of all of this, because of everything that we've been talking about today, this is really a change of mind shift. And we no longer ask the question, what happens when we die? Because we're all living longer, the statistics I showed you earlier, the question is what happens if we don't die? Because we're all going to die eventually, we know that. But what happens if first, which is more likely, what happens if we become ill, if we have this need for a long-term care need, what happens, how we're going to plan for ourselves first. This is one situation where you need to be selfish. You plan for yourself first, and then if that is well planned out, then that's going to take care of your spouse, your family later on. It's kind of like when you're on the airplane, right? What do they say? The oxygen masks come down. You're taking care of a baby or a young person. What do they tell you to do first? Put yours on first, right? Because we can't help our family if we haven't taken care of ourselves first. So that's the plan here. So we're going to have the I love you dearly but plan. I still love you, honey, but we're going to have a plan B in place here as well. Make sure it doesn't all go to the nursing home.